You would? Yeah.
Of course I would.
Bill Brady.
I should like to ask Ernest and Lynn why they want to restrict a minimum price to labor. Why don't you let me have a minimum price on the products that we manufacture?
Well, we aren't here, as I understand it, to discuss your problems at the moment in terms of the owners.
Is there a difference? Why a minimum on a product?
You're the people, I assume, are so anxious to have the free market system and to compete with each other and all the rest of it. We're talking about the needs of the workers. We're talking about the needs of the people who come into a society which isn't providing enough employment for them, which clearly doesn't seem to be able to provide enough employment for them, and what are we going to do? And I think this notion that somehow if we just let every guy who's running a hamburger stand or whatever, we just let all these people exploit the young people of this nation in any way they chose, pay them any little rate they could get away with, that everybody would then to go to work, everybody then have a job is absolute nonsense.
I want to bring Milton to one of the final stages of his film, which is on Spartanburg, South Carolina. Sure. And I want to know what conclusion you're drawing from that. Would you, in effect, like to see the whole of the United States become, as it were, Spartanburg writ large?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What would that mean? And then we'll get their reaction to it.
It would mean a widening of the opportunity for everybody. It would mean an opportunity for employers all over to compete with one another for workers. It would mean an opportunity for workers to find jobs which can make the greatest use of their own skills and their own capacities. It would mean that consumers would be able to get better products at lower prices. You know, consumers enter into this situation, too. You might think that somehow or other, you know, one of the things that's always a mystery to me, if a $2.90 minimum wage benefits people, why wouldn't a $6 minimum wage be better? Wouldn't a $10 minimum wage be better? Why don't these people come out for a $200 a year minimum wage? If all you had to do is to make a country proud,
$200 a year is pretty small.
$200 a day, an hour.
Or extended to babysitters.
Yeah, if all you need to improve the lot of conditions of people is to legislate a higher workforce.
No, you're back on minimum wages. I want to know how Spartanburg would
Spartanburg improves matters because it introduces a wider range of competition, and the real thing that protects a worker is the existence of alternative employers seeking his services, just as what protects a consumer is alternative sellers.
Milton, you omit one thing that it would do, and it would result in a very substantial increase in capital investment.
Absolutely, it would.
And capital is the worker's second best friend.
Sure.
This is only to say that a busy economy, one in which there's investment and development and so on, is an economy that's a good economy for working people and for everyone else. I think we say that in the AFL-CIO at least once a month, all the time. There's nothing in which we're more interested than having a busy, functioning economy. The question is how to bring that about. I do suggest, and I think I think can be defended as long as we want to discuss it, that the prosperity we have in America today, that the labor movements have made an enormous contribution to that, and in the absence of the labor movement and in the absence of minimum wage, this would not be as prosperous a country as it is.
Now, hold it there.
That is not to say that it's perfect.
I want to get a reaction to that. He stated the case for what the unions have achieved. Could we go around, first of all? Do you accept any part of that?
You know, it's preposterous, you know, as I suggested before. I mean, if minimum wages can make people richer...
The unions we're talking about
Well,
now.
if unions can make people richer, well, all you have to do is tell people in Bangladesh, why don't you unionize and demand a higher wage? You can be rich like the United States.
We're telling them everywhere in the world. We told them in Japan.
Workers have higher wages in our country because they're more productive. That's how you get higher wages. And this is just plain, I mean, it's nonsense.
And why are they more productive?
Huh? Because they have capital.
Enormous capital investment.
Right.
Yeah, and the highest wages are paid in the capital-intensive industry.
And because there are consumers to buy the stuff who have wages which enable them to go into the marketplace and buy something.
Without the capital investment, they wouldn't have the wages. There would be no way of paying them without the capital investment.
Ernest Green, what's the reply?
I stand by my initial statement that it is a prerequisite of a democratic society to have trade unions, organizations allowing workers to band together in their mutual interests. And if that group, I'm saying that trade unions like A. Philip Randolph, sleeping car porters, the Pullman car company would have never, on its own, given those workers who worked very hard, were very productive people, well educated, any increase in their wages had it not been for the intervention of Randolph.
The crucial issue is whether governmental measures which have the effect of favoring union organization, of giving them privileges and immunities that are not accorded to other organizations in the society, benefit the society as a whole or harm the society as a whole. The proposition I tried to make in this film was that the source of the prosperity of this country was freedom of enterprise, freedom of employers to hire, of workers to work for whom they wanted to, that insofar as unions had played a role, they had protected some workers at the expense of others and had retarded the prosperity of this country. I think that Lynn Williams' statements to the contrary cannot be supported by any empirical or other evidence, that he has, understandably, I'm not blaming him for this, he would be faithless to his job if he did not believe sincerely in what he's saying. I'm not questioning his sincerity, but sincerity is a much overrated virtue in our society. The plain fact is that there is no evidence whatsoever that either unions or minimum wages have made positive contributions to the prosperity of this country. Some unions have, of course. Some unions have done great harm. It's not an open and shut picture in which you can make a sweeping statement. But on the whole, the growth of this country, I do. The sweeping statement I make is that the prosperity of this country derives primarily from freedom of enterprise and freedom to hire, to employ, to work, and not from restrictive measures imposed by trade unions.
Everybody briefly now.
And I would say that the intervention of a strong federal government, who those employers hire, the kinds of protection, the wage standards, health conditions are the requirement of this government to protect its people, because the history of it has shown that that hasn't occurred. And in your case in Spartanburg, South Carolina, again, I argue that the only reason that they can come back now and attract firms from Switzerland and Germany is because, one, that we had a strong government that provided protection for all of its citizens, which didn't occur 15 years ago.
Brady?
Economic freedom, in my opinion, should not be a bridge. I think that these two gentlemen are advocating that it be a bridge. They're advocating a retention of the minimum wage. They're advocating, I think that Lynn Williams is advocating a retention of the Davis-Bacon Act. They do not, it seems to me, believe that freedoms are interdependent and indivisible. There are freedoms, there's economic freedom, there's press freedom, there's freedom of assembly, there's religious freedom. And you are advocating, to me, a great abridgment of economic freedom, and when you do that, you injure the other freedoms that we have, and if you do it enough, as we are doing in this country today, if you do it enough, we are in danger of losing all of our other freedoms.
Now we leave this very spirited discussion, and I hope you'll join us again in the next episode of Free to Choose.
Next week, Milton Friedman focuses on one of the most disturbing problems in the world today, the problem of inflation. There is a way to deal with it. If you want to find out how to cure inflation, don't miss Free to Choose next week.